Here's a tip I tell myself every single time I hang out with new people. I hang out with them and I try to be 100% myself. And I tell myself, if I really don't like these people, I literally never have to see them again.
Can't relate to cancel culture, hookup culture, or victim culture?
Well, neither could we. We created this platform for those other girls. Girls like us who want to give a different perspective from a Christian and conservative worldview.
We talk about life, work, relationships, pop culture, and everything in between. So let's be those other girls that just don't talk about culture,
but change culture.
Hello, everyone. You are listening to Those Are the Girls with Mallory and Friends. I am Mallory, and you, are changing culture and bringing back traditional values. So this is a solo episode today. It is really, you guys can see the title. This is really an advice episode, and I'm really excited to get into 5 advice items. I guess you say advice items. Is that the right wording? 5 things that I think everyone who graduates should be focusing on. Like, I guess 5 advice items, I guess is what it's called. Anywho, I'm getting into 5. They're not necessarily in any particular order, except for maybe the first one. And then this will also be a blog post, so I'll make sure to link that in the bio in the description as a blog post for you to see and for you to share with all your friends. Before we get into it, for those that do not know, this is a podcast where we talk about all things career, life, relationships, pop culture from a Christian conservative perspective. So that means we're going to be coming at everything from a biblical worldview, which do not change it, because a lot of things that I say you might actually agree with, and you might learn a thing or two. We also have an app that I recommend everybody get. You can easily listen to the podcast, look at blog posts, get cute merch such as this tumbler. It says Other Girls. This is part of the Barbie collection, where we have a bunch of Barbie girl, other girl. That's what we are. Other girls, Barbie girl type of thing. Cute things like this. We also have some really cute pro-life merch if you're looking for it. We also have a Patreon, so if you're enjoying the podcast and you want to also kind of pour into the podcast, because there's a lot of things that we do that we need financial assistance with. So if you are enjoying the podcast and you want to pour into the podcast, joining our Patreon for as low as $5 a month will make a huge difference. 100% of that goes right back to the podcast, because right now 100% is, well, not 100%, because we do have ads and we have Patreon. Right now, the majority of it comes out of my pocket. And shout out to those who are already on the Patreon and those who listen, because that helps us pay. And those who've bought merch. We have a lot of cute merch. But if you're like, you know what, I really want to help them, I think that what they're doing is great, I want them to do more, the Patreon is a great place to start for that. So join a Patreon. All right, so let's get into it. Without, there's not really much. I'm trying to think of any other announcements. Check out this past week's weekly TCAP. I thought it was very interesting. It is definitely something that can be is evergreen. So, even if you find us 6 years from now, I think a lot of the truths that we mentioned in the podcast, a lot of the topics are so relevant. And if you have not already, subscribe to the YouTube channel, because what we do a lot of times, and I'm trying to be better with this, is clip certain segments. So let's say, for example, our segment about birth control, about how birth control changes your mind and it can change who you're attracted to. Interesting, right? You should listen to the episode. So we clipped that and it's on the YouTube channel. So if you have a friend who you want to share that information with and you don't know if she wants to hear the whole podcast, or you really liked that and you want to save it for later, or you want to reference back to it, our YouTube channel has that. And right now, as of today, when I'm recording this, I looked and we're at 60% men. No shade against men. Shout out to all the men listening. But if we're being honest, talking about birth control is mainly a woman's issue. So we really want to get more women watching and listening and subscribing. So ladies, if you have not already, make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Also, make sure you're sharing with all of your friends on the tube. Okay, I think that's it. So I want to get into my top 5 advice. If I look down at my phone, it's because I wrote it down, because I really took this seriously. There's a lot of you guys who are graduating college. Congratulations, grads. Congrats, grads. Okay. So, I find that so funny. Anyway, um, and a lot of you guys are graduating. Some people have reached out to me for like advice on different topics and stuff. So I really want to take this seriously because I know that there's people listening who really do need advice and help. So I wrote down and made some notes. So if you see me like that on my phone, that's what I'm doing. So let's get it started. I guess for the third time I'm saying this. So once again, congratulations. Seriously, congratulations to everybody who has graduated this year and people who might have graduated in December, but you're technically still part of class 2023. Seriously, congratulations. This is a huge accomplishment in a time where, there are certain people who are saying, oh, education is awful, it's evil, don't do it. I think it is, especially in the Christian conservative realm, I think it's really good for people to kind of like ignore that because first of all, education is important. Education is needed. You need to be able to articulate your thoughts. You need to be able to use discernment. You need to be able to read something, and reading comprehension is so important. And a lot of these things, and whether we want to admit it or not, you learn through an educational setting. So even if it's, yeah, I'll just leave it at that. A lot of these things you learn in an educational setting. So I'm very proud of those people who have done that. If you're going to be a lawyer, if you're going to be a doctor, if you're going to be, even in like finance, if you want to work stock market, if you want to work the stock market, if you want to do engineering, I can't really name too many engineering jobs. I guess work at build roller coasters, things like that, build bridges. If you want to do these things, you need school, you need an education. So I think it's just really important when you are in high school and you're trying to figure out what do you want to do, just, use some of that critical thinking that you hopefully learned in high school to decide whether college is for you. And or trade school. I personally think everyone should do something. I no shade or anything like that to people who didn't, and that's great. I mean, we hear the stories of people who didn't go to college and they go off and do wonderful, amazing things, but I also just want to remind everyone those are kind of rare stories. A lot of people that I know that didn't go to college aren't necessarily living I'll say this, people who didn't go to college, I have a couple friends who didn't, they have a difficult time finding jobs. Not saying that those of us who went to college don't have a difficult time finding jobs, but a lot of jobs require at least a bachelor's. So it is important to get some sort of education. And I think that and once again, you don't have to go into debt doing it. You don't have to travel all across the country to do it. You can do it in your own town if you'd like. But I think it's important to have the education. And I will say this, though. You can stay in your own town if you want. Like, it all depends on your financial situation and, like, what you're comfortable with. But if you're teetering between, I don't know if I should stay in my town or if I should go out, I would say to go out of your town. I think that as someone who left, I mean, I went all the way up to New Jersey, and I'm from North Carolina. Like, huge, absolutely huge difference of culture, people, landscape. It was a culture shock for sure, but I am grateful for that experience because I learned a lot about people, and I think that's the biggest thing that I would not be the same person I am today if I had not had that experience. If I had stayed here, I know without a shadow of doubt, I wouldn't have a podcast. I wouldn't have half of the experiences that I've had if I had just stayed here. Once again, no shade to those who do, because everybody's path is different. But if you're going back and forth and you want my advice, I would say go. And then when you leave, make sure that you are, this summer, make sure you are working on like who you are as a person, your identity in Christ, so that when you go, it's not so much of a, I guess, culture shock, is for lack of a better word. Anyway, maybe I'll do one on graduating high school, going off to college. Oh, maybe I'll do that in like August. I'll do one for people who are going to college. But those who have graduated and you're going to, in the real world, or grad school, or med school, or law school, here's some advice I have for you. First one, you should find a church immediately. And finding a church is incredibly difficult. I mean, it took so I've had two, I guess, experiences. So right after college, I went to grad school in Virginia Beach, and I actually was blessed. I found a church right away. And through that church, I found amazing friends. I had a boyfriend at the time. I made a boyfriend from that church. Made a boyfriend. I got a boyfriend from that church. That's a funny thought. And I was in a bunch of really good communities. I did one thing that was really big for me growing up was I worked at an inner city summer camp, and I did some mentoring, and I was able to do something similar to that while I was there. And that's something that was like a huge part of my life that I missed when I was in New Jersey. I just couldn't. I mean, I did it one semester actually. Really quick story. So sorry. Now I'm on a quick tangent, and then we'll get right back on the train. So it was so I don't really know how the program went. I think like you could sign up to do just random volunteer stuff. So we would get on a bus, or was it a van? Maybe it was a van. Anyway, so at my college, I can't remember what year. Maybe it was my junior year at college. I signed up to help play with kids who were somehow affected by AIDS. They didn't tell us how, which is fine. I don't know if the kids had AIDS or a family member had AIDS or like a guardian had, I don't know, but somehow they were affected by AIDS. So they would meet at this church, and we would play with them and have a good time. One of the little girls, I'll never forget her. She was super cute. She actually looked like she could have been my daughter, and we all became great friends. It was such a great semester experience. Looking back, I kind of wish I had stayed connected, but then I moved from New Jersey, so not much could have done there. But anywho, so it was this old church, we're playing in like the gym or something, we're playing games and we're like having fun, and one of the girls goes, "What is he doing up there?" And me and another counselor or another leader, we look up and there's like nobody up there, and the other counselor girl goes, "What?" She goes, "Never mind," and like walks away, and we look at each other like, what just happened? Like, what did she say? Anyway, it was a funny story. So find a church. That was a completely random tangent, but whatever. So find a church. Finding a church is really important. When I moved back here to Charlotte after the panoramic, I had a difficult time finding a church because I was trying to find a church that kind of encompassed everything that I needed, or that I thought I needed and wanted, and I was kind of trying to replicate the old church. But as I've matured, gotten older, and just really thought about it, like what really matters is finding a church that goes with the Bible, that the pastor goes up there and he preaches from the Bible, doesn't add or take away. He is reading the Bible and he is leading you, and someone you can be under their leadership. And that's what's important. I do think community is very important. Finding good Christian friends is super important. I will say I found my good Christian friends outside of my church. I definitely, once I change a little bit more of my like circumstance, I would like to find some in my church. But right now, I do have a good Christian community, which I guess is like a sub point, which is really, really important too, is finding a Christian community. And I want to add, and this community could be at your church. I recommend it to be at your church. But like I said, a lot of life things can happen, a lot of life circumstances. It can be outside of your church as well, as long as they're Christian and you guys are agreeing and you're doing life together, essentially. And I'm very grateful that I found that. I have a couple of friends in this town that I know if I were going through something and I really needed spiritual guidance or spiritual help, or just I really needed someone to pray for, I'm grateful that I do have a group like that. Well, it's not really a group. Well, it is a group, I guess you can say. I'm very, very grateful to have a group like that. And I think that's so important. And I also want to just reiterate, find a church. Like, don't stop until you find that church. Don't stop until you find a church that has good biblical teaching. And once you find it, go from there. Like, that's the most important part. In the blog post that I'm going to have about this topic, I link a Gospel Coalition article that has 5 questions for your church search. So these are like 5 things you can think about when you're looking for a church. Second thing is putting yourself out there. I think this is everything else is pretty much like out of order, just so you know. But the second thing I have written down is like putting yourself out there. Putting yourself out there is so hard, especially when we come from like, everybody says there's not popular in college, and there isn't popular in college. You just have your friend groups. But within your friend groups, you can still kind of be like uncomfortable and awkward about certain things. Um, like, it's still like a possible um to be like still a little insecure and like not feel comfortable in your own skin. Like, it's still a thing, and you feel that way when you are in the real world as well. And sometimes you just have to do it. You just have to go to the concert by yourself. Sometimes you just have to show up at the Bible study by yourself. Sometimes you have to go to the your friend invites you to another friend's watch party of The Bachelor. You just have to go. You have to go. You got to put yourself, like, just do it. And it can be hard and uncomfortable, but there's so many other experiences that can come out of you putting yourself out there. And staying at home all the time, which, don't get me wrong, there are some times that I'm like, oh, I just need to be at home. I'm tired. Like, oh, what's going on with Jeff and Annie again? Only someone get that. There's sometimes when you want to do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to have relationships, if you want to have fun, if you want to go out and do things, if you want to just have a lot more experiences, you have to put yourself out there. And it can be uncomfortable, it can be weird, but just do it. Just do it. And here's a tip I tell myself every single time I hang out with new people. I hang out with them and I try to be 100% myself. I try. Sometimes, you get a little uncomfortable. You can't be 100%. But I try to be 100% myself. And I tell myself, if I really don't like these people, I literally never have to see them again. Because you really don't. Like, if you hang out with people and you're like, these are not my people, just don't ever do it again. Meet other people. So that's the second thing. The third thing, and this is super important. You're going to be spending most of your time, especially if you're going from a job, if you're graduating, you're going to a job. So if you're graduating grad school, med school, law school, or college, and you go straight to a job, you're going to be spending most of your time at that job. If you, let's say, go to grad school, you're going to be spending most of your time grad schooling, so doing schoolwork and working, because most people in grad school also work. You're going to be very busy. You're going to be spending most of the time doing things that you don't necessarily love or don't necessarily make you happy, but it's what you have to do for your work, what you have to do for your job. Now, if you have a job that you love, that's fabulous. You're a lucky one. I'm just joking. That's fabulous. And you should pick a job that you love. But I understand that, like, financially, sometimes you just can't do that. In this economy, you can't do that. So what you need to do is find what makes you happy and try to schedule that as much as possible. Some of the things that make me happy, some things that I'm like, oh, this is so fun, honestly, is talking and giving my opinion. But not everybody, like, I feel like that's not necessarily relatable. So I really like jewelry, as you can see, like, not a slight flex, slight marketing. This pink rose necklace, is from the jewelry store that I own, the Pink Rose, and these are available. You can use the code OTHERGIRLS10 to get 10% off. But, like, making jewelry, and working on the jewelry store, so, for example, like, looking at different manufacturers, seeing what do they have, doing some research, trying to figure out, okay, this is the campaign I want to do because we have a new collection coming out. Okay, how do I work out this campaign? That makes me really happy. I've really gotten into Like to Know It, and even though, like, I don't post, like, I should be posting every day for Like to Know It, but that kind of does make me happy, like, trying to find, like, ooh, this is cute. This is a cute clothes things, and I'll say this, trying to find themed items for, like, concerts, parties, events is really fun too, for me. So I enjoy that. So finding things that you like and doing them as often as possible, and working it out financially. So, for example, I love like theme parties and, like, trying to find, like, okay, what do I do this? How do I find this? And then adding a little thing, trying to also be a little bit modest with it, which is kind of hard. Like, there's some certain things that certain for example, when I went to that concert, I don't know if you guys saw, I went to, a festival. It was kind of hard trying to find something that was like kind of modest and still fun. But that was, to me, that was like fun. Like, ooh, this is a fun little game. Like, okay, if I wear that with that, okay, then maybe I should do this. Da, da, da. So things like that, super fun. So do that as often as you can, but also, be realistic. I cannot do a themed birthday or a themed party every weekend. So then I have to plan for that. But the point is, though, finding what you love, finding what you like, and try to do that as much as possible. I love talking, so I do try to do 1 to 2 episodes a week because it's something I enjoy. I enjoyed this aspect of it. The editing, don't like. And if you guys have noticed, it's a lot better. It's because Freeman is doing it now. So, load off my shoulders. But I like doing that. So just trying to find things that make you happy and doing them as much as possible, because that is how you're going to balance or try to balance life. And that's what I try to work on, because sometimes life is 80% sad, 20% happy. So you kind of hold on to that 20% happy, and sometimes it's 80% happy and 20% sad. So you just make sure figure out what you like. Try different things, hiking, painting, I'm trying to think of other knitting. Just try to find the thing that you enjoy. Okay, 2 more and then we're done. The 4th one is get in control of your finances. So this kind of ties into what makes you happy. Make sure that what's making you happy isn't also like breaking your bank, too much at least. So a huge regret I have is I did not take my finances as seriously as I should have when I first graduated college. Even like I should have gotten in control of them before I even started this job. Like I should have gotten in control of them. I'll admit, and I'm sure lots of other girls listening, you guys are in a similar boat and don't do what I did. I'm going to tell you guys something. I legitimately thought I was going to be married by now. I'm 28. So I didn't think twice about finance. Like, that's why I didn't really care. I was just like, oh, my husband's going to figure it out. And don't do that, because you could be 28, unmarried, and like, what am I doing with finances? Like, this is so hard. And it is hard. As someone, like, my brain is not, like, I'm just not into this stuff. Like, I don't want to say I could not care less, but like, it's not interesting to me. It's not fun. Like, budgeting and, looking at investments, these things are not fun to me. Like, it's not, like, that does not make me happy. So, but I still have to do it. Like, I am in control of myself. I pay my bills. I am the one who has to, if I would have to file bankruptcy, it'd be me. If my car were to get, what is it called? Repossessed or whatever it is, it'd be on me, on my credit score. It's my credit score. It's not anyone else's. So you do have to be in control, and it's uncomfortable and you hate it. And I understand. I'm right there with you. If I could avoid it, I would. I ask my dad a lot of questions often. Well, maybe not often, especially I'll say this. When I first started my job, I was asking my dad questions all the time. And I did kind of feel like, oh, I gotta stop doing it. I really have to like get control. I read this book. It's called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. I cannot remember who it's by, and I will link it in the description and everywhere. I'm sorry, I'll link it in the on the blog post so you guys can get it. I've read the majority of that book. Super good. I can't say I read the whole thing, but really good, and it really helped me. Like, even with like credit cards, like I grew up in a time where credit cards evil, bad, credit cards, no. And the reality is, like, how credit cards, if you are mature enough to use it, and the book shows you how to do it well, credit cards can actually help you. Like, that's how people are going to, for example, like a YouTuber I watched, he said that he was explaining how he went to Japan, stayed in, flew first class for free because of credit card points. And these are things that when you're told evil, then like you don't learn. So, this guy, Rami is his first name. I can't remember his last name. And he has a show on YouTube. A show on Netflix about that. And I think he has amazing, like, his mindset has changed my mindset when it comes to money and like managing. One of his big things is like, what is your rich life? What makes you happy? Because, you know, when you're talking to people, they're like, oh yeah, you gotta buy a house, you gotta buy a house, you gotta buy a house. I have not really had a desire as a single woman. I don't know. I've just never had the desire to buy a house. I wanted to buy a house because, like, that's what you're supposed to do, right? Right. Well, buying a house isn't just like people are like, yeah, buy a house. It'll help everything. Well, buying a house is an investment. So you might not be, you know, you might own it, but that means when the refrigerator goes down, it's in the book. And maybe I'll also link some podcasts that he's been on. When the refrigerator goes down, like, you're paying for it. When, you know, something doesn't work right, you're paying for it. When you're renting, it's not like that. Like, someone else is paying for it. So, like, depending on what season of life you're in, one might be better than the other. If I was married, and we wanted to start a family and I knew where I wanted to live, because that's the other thing too. I don't plan on living where I'm living now forever. Ideally, I'd like to leave as soon as possible. So it wouldn't make any sense to buy a house here. Like, wherever you buy your house, that's kind of where you should be. Like, make that your home. Like, that's probably where you're going to live for a long time. So it depends on what season of life you're in, whether that's even necessary. Sometimes we just hear other people say, do this, do this, do that. My rich life is traveling, like going out of the country and like meeting new people, having new experiences. Like, that's my rich life. So then I should make my finances match that. What does that mean? So that means maybe I don't get, maybe I buy a cold brew machine so I can make my own cold brew instead of going to the coffee shop and getting it. Those are the type of things that he talks about in there. And then he talks about like different banks. Like, certain banks don't have the best return, don't have the best like report when it comes to how they're managing your money. He talks about that. It's just a really good book, and I'd recommend everybody just figure it out, sitting down one day and just saying, okay, I need to get in control of this. What do I need to do? What do I owe? What don't I owe? How am I going to pay for this? And like really getting budgeting, really getting control of that. That is something I really regret I didn't do. I just, you know, you have dreams and hopes, and sometimes they just don't work out the way you want. So you got to like pivot. And that's what this has been. The fifth and final thing is something that is another huge regret of mine. That I just really want to get this, every woman specifically. This is something very important. I think this is something that will make or break your 20s. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. This will make or break your 20s. Get in control of your health and get support immediately. So there are so many things that could go wrong with your health, especially in your early 20s. You might need help, and that's okay. I have friends who have PCOS, and because of that, they've had problems like losing weight and things like that. But they've been able to do it, but they needed help. I personally, I don't have PCOS, but I need help losing weight. You know, once you get to a certain weight, the little Instagram girls who's never been more than 20 pounds overweight, their little workouts and health plans don't really work for you, which is, sorry, y'all. Once you get to a certain weight, they just don't work for you, which is fine. Like, no shade to those girls. Like, I wish I could be them. But there could be other factors. There could be other things that can be affecting your weight loss, you know, birth control, and, you know, not just weight, but like I said, birth control, getting in charge of your fertility, getting in charge of, if you're having issues with your skin, what can you do to help your skin? Your hair's not growing the way you want it to. How do you fix that? You're used to having your hair a certain style. What can you do differently? Like, just getting in control of it, because I know for myself, things in my 20s have like spiraled, and I'm not very happy with it, but it spiraled because I just let it get out of control because it was overwhelming. That's another thing too. Just remember that you're not alone in whatever health journey you're going through. Whether it's your weight, and some people could be underweight. If you're having problems gaining weight, get in control over that, because that's just as unhealthy as, I'm sorry, like be too underweight, it's just as unhealthy as being too overweight. So get in control of that, because if you're not in control of this, it'll control you and it'll shape the rest of your 20s. You don't want to spend your 20s disappointed in how your life has happened. That's not something that I would wish on anyone. So I really would say, like, get in control of that. What does that mean? It means talking to doctors. It means doing some research on your own. It means being your own advocate. And it means, like, making some changes. And, like, I wouldn't say talk to all your, I used to say tell your friends everything. I don't necessarily believe that anymore. I would say talk to some friends that might be able to relate. There's friends I have, love them to death. They can never relate to what I'm going through when it comes to, like, my weight health. And I've stopped sharing it with them. No shade to them. Absolutely love them and adore them, but they can't relate. And honestly, it just makes me upset. Probably makes them upset when we have conversations. So I wouldn't say talk to everybody about it, but, like, friends that you do have. Ooh, sorry. That's my alarm. I would say friends that you do have that are in a similar situation as you, talk to them about it, because I think you guys will feel so much better to, like, have someone else to discuss it with, and you'll feel less alone, because I think that's the biggest thing, especially as women. I think a lot of us struggle with, like, feeling alone, feeling like we're the only ones going through this, we're the only ones going through that. So go ahead and make that plan and go and get help if you need help. These are just 5 things that I think are really important. My 5 advice things that I would love to give everyone who's graduating. Once again, congratulations. Congrats, grads. This is an amazing feat. You are about to go into the real world. You know what? You're about to go into a different season of life, because some people have already been in the real world by this time, but, like, you're about to enter a different season of life. It is going to be fabulous. You're going to have really, really good highs and probably really, really bad lows, but just remember that that's life. There's going to be a lot of ups, a lot of downs, and also just remember, like, God is still with you through this whole thing. Jesus is still Lord. God is on the throne, and even if he never blesses you again, I heard someone say this and I think about this all the time, even if he never blesses you again, he is still God. There is still hope in the future. There is still hope in heaven. He is still God. So just keep that in mind when you're going through life. I'm also talking to myself, because sometimes life, after college, after high school, after elementary school, sometimes life isn't what you thought it would be. But you just keep going. You keep going. All right, ladies, I hope you enjoyed this episode. It was quick. Make sure you read the blog post. Make sure you share this. If you like this, make sure you share it with all your friends that just graduated. If you're a mom or a dad that's listening and you have a grad, share it with them. Let me know what you think. Do you guys have any other advice or tips for people? If you're listening and you've already graduated, what other advice or tips do you guys have? Go ahead and leave it in the comments and, like, put it on the Spotify, and I'll share some on social media. You can also comment on the blog post that is going to be posted, and it'll be really easy to comment if you have the app. Get the app. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. Make sure you rate, review, subscribe, and leave tons of positive reviews wherever you're listening, whether it's Google, Stitcher, Amazon, Apple, Spotify, wherever else we have, YouTube, wherever else you have it. Please leave a good review. Thank you. Have a great night, day, evening, however. Bye.